It was a cool spring morning when the hegemony first appeared in Earth's skies. Their massive ships, dark metallic structures shaped like twisted spines, blotted out the sun over major cities worldwide. No warnings, no attempts at communication. Just sudden, overwhelming presence. The attack began exactly 3 minutes after their arrival. Beams of blue-white energy sliced through Seoul's skyscrapers, turning steel and glass into molten rivers. Similar reports flooded in from Mumbai, Lagos, New York, and 17 other population centers. Within the first hour, 30 million humans were dead. President Kim stood in the emergency bunker beneath the Blue House, his normally composed face ashen as he watched footage of Busan collapsing into the sea after a direct hit. Around him, cabinet members whispered frantic prayers or stared in shocked silence. "We need to establish communication," Kim said finally. "Find out what they want." General Park, still wearing the dress uniform he'd been in for a military parade that morning, shook his head. "Sir, our satellite networks are being systematically destroyed. We've lost 80% of our orbital assets." The general pointed to a tactical display showing the positions of the alien vessels. "Notice anything strange about their targets? They've hit population centers, infrastructure, communication hubs, but they've avoided military installations. The Gangwon missile base remains untouched, so does the Jinhae naval base." Before President Kim could respond, every screen in the bunker flickered, then showed the same image: a tall, slender figure with pale grey skin and 4 arms. Its face featured 3 vertical slits where a human would have eyes and a mouth that didn't move when it spoke. "People of Earth," the translation overlay read, "I am Over-Commander Hrax of the Galactic Hegemony. Your planet has been selected for integration into our expanding territories. Your technological development has reached the threshold where you present a future concern, but remain sufficiently primitive for effective management." The alien paused, head tilting slightly. "Your species has 2 options. Submit to hegemony authority, and your population will be reduced by a reasonable 70%, with survivors serving productive roles in our hierarchy. Resist, and we will reduce your biomass to 0 and harvest your world's resources without your participation." President Kim gripped the edge of the table. "Can we respond?" A communications officer tried frantically before looking up. "It's one way." "Sir," the alien continued, "you have what you call 48 hours to signal submission by disabling all military equipment and assembling your remaining leadership at the coordinates being transmitted now. This is generous by hegemony standards." The transmission ended, leaving the bunker in silence. "They're playing this by their standard protocol," General Park said, studying data flowing across his tablet. "Reports coming in from other countries confirm similar messages worldwide. The aliens hit civilian targets first as a show of force, then offer terms favorable to themselves." "Favorable?" Foreign Minister Yoon's voice cracked. "They're talking about killing 5 billion people." "From their perspective, they're being efficient," Park replied. "They believe they've demonstrated their technological superiority. They expect us to calculate the odds and surrender." A grim smile crossed his weathered face. "They clearly don't understand human history." President Kim nodded slowly. "They've made a fundamental error. How much damage could we have inflicted if they'd struck our military assets first?" "Very little against their technology," Park admitted. "Our most advanced weapons might as well be spears against their shields. So attacking civilian targets first was unnecessary. It was a mistake," Park finished. "They thought it would break our will. Instead they've united us," Kim said. "Get me a secure line to every major nation still standing, and find me our best scientists. If they have technology that advanced, there must be something we can use against them." Over the next 2 days, as the hegemony waited for Earth's surrender, something remarkable happened. Ancient enemies shared intelligence, rival scientists pooled research, military leaders coordinated across borders without hesitation. In Tokyo, Dr. Jin analyzed the energy signatures from the alien weapons and discovered patterns that suggested vulnerabilities in their shielding technology. In Moscow, engineers worked alongside American counterparts to modify existing missile systems based on Dr. Jin's findings. The hegemony watched from orbit, intercepting enough communications to understand that Earth's leaders were conferring, but interpreting this as preparation for surrender. In their 16,000 years of expansion, no species had ever responded differently after such a demonstration. When the deadline approached, a small human shuttle launched from Kazakhstan. The hegemony allowed it passage, assuming it carried representatives coming to offer Earth submission. Aboard the shuttle, Lieutenant Su checked the modified equipment one final time. The device, cobbled together from parts of a weather satellite and reprogrammed with code written by teams working around the clock, didn't look impressive, but it only needed to work long enough to gather data on the aliens' command ship. "We're being scanned," Su reported as they approached the massive alien vessel, transmitting the surrender message now. The message, crafted to sound appropriately defeated, requested face-to-face discussion of surrender terms, a request the hegemony granted, as they preferred to catalogue new species representatives directly. The shuttle docked with the alien ship. Su activated the device. It didn't attack. It simply listened, mapping the electromagnetic signals flowing through the alien vessel's systems. The data streamed back to Earth through a quantum-entangled transmitter too primitive for the hegemony to recognize as communication technology. On Earth, President Kim watched the shuttle mission unfold while speaking with other world leaders. "We won't survive a direct confrontation," he admitted, "but Lieutenant Su's mission gives us options. We need time." "Time for what?" asked the German Chancellor. General Park answered, his expression hard as granite. "Time to ensure that if humanity falls, we take the hegemony with us. They attacked the wrong species. They killed our children, our families, and now they'll learn that humans don't surrender. We evolve, we adapt, and we remember our dead." In orbit, Lieutenant Su smiled politely at the four-armed alien ambassador, boarding their shuttle, hiding her contempt behind diplomatic courtesy. The first phase of humanity's response was just beginning. The hegemony had expected submission. Instead, they had awakened Earth's wrath. 6 months changed everything. The smoking ruins of cities had become hives of activity, not of rebuilding, but of transformation. Underground facilities hummed with machinery day and night as humans worked, with singular purpose. Dr. Lee stood in what had once been a baseball stadium, now converted into a massive research center. The field was covered with pieces of a downed hegemony scout ship that had crashed during their initial attack. Hundreds of scientists moved between workstations, examining components under powerful microscopes or testing materials with equipment that hadn't existed 3 months ago. "Show me," Dr. Lee said, approaching a team huddled around what appeared to be the alien craft's engine core. Professor Bay looked up, dark circles under her eyes, but excitement lighting her face. "We've cracked their propulsion system. The principles are similar to theoretical models we had been developing, but they've solved problems we thought were decades away from resolution. Can we replicate it?" "Better," Bay grinned. "We can improve it. Their design is efficient, but they've been using the same technology for centuries with only incremental improvements. They've stopped innovating. This pattern repeated across every aspect of hegemony technology. Their weapons were devastating, but relied on principles humans had theorized about. Their communication systems were advanced, but followed mathematical models Earth scientists recognized. The aliens weren't magical beings. They were just further along a technological path humanity had already started exploring. Most importantly, they were complacent. On the other side of the world, deep beneath the Urals, General Tai supervised the construction of Earth's first defense fleet. The hangar stretched for kilometers, filled with skeletal spacecraft frames being fitted with hybrid systems, human designs enhanced by reverse-engineered alien technology. "The shield generators are still overheating," an engineer reported, pointing to diagnostic readings from their latest test. "Then we solve it," Tay replied simply. "How long?" 3 days, maybe 4. Before the attacks, such a problem might have taken months to resolve. Now solutions came in hours or days. Necessity had forged humanity into something new, desperate, focused, unified. In what remained of Geneva, Director Choi presided over the Earth Defense Council, a body that had replaced the ineffective UN within weeks of the attack. Representatives from every surviving nation gathered not to debate, but to coordinate. Ancient hatreds had been set aside, not forgotten, but deemed irrelevant in the face of extinction. "The hegemony fleet at the edge of our system has been growing," Choi announced, bringing up holographic projections showing alien ship movements. "Intelligence suggests they're puzzled by our lack of communication. They expected either surrender or futile resistance by now." "They don't understand what they've done," said the representative from Brazil. "They awakened something they have no reference for. Indeed, human history was filled with examples of technological leaps during existential threats. The hegemony, having never faced serious resistance in thousands of years of conquest, had no concept of how danger could accelerate human innovation. The warning came 3 days later. A hegemony diplomatic vessel entered Earth orbit, broadcasting demands for Earth's immediate surrender. They expressed confusion at the lack of response to their generous terms and warned that the management phase would begin within their equivalent of a week. Rather than launching the attack they believed would end resistance, they requested a meeting, a final chance for Earth to submit with minimal additional casualties. This arrogance proved their undoing. The meeting took place aboard a hastily constructed space station positioned between Earth and Luna. The hegemony representatives, 3 tall, 4-armed beings with translucent skin that revealed pulsing organs beneath, arrived with an air of bored routine. They had performed this ritual many times before: accept submission, catalogue the new species' capabilities, begin the harvesting process. What they found instead shocked them. Director Choi, flanked by representatives from major Earth powers, sat calmly at a simple table. Behind them stood military officers, scientists and engineers, a show of human unity that confused the aliens. "We expected your planetary leadership to have prepared submission protocols," the lead hegemony representative said through their translation device. "Our scanning shows you have not disarmed as instructed." Choi smiled. Not warmly, but with the cold satisfaction of someone holding cards their opponent didn't know existed. "We are not here to discuss surrender," she said. "We are here to give you a chance to leave our system peacefully." The aliens made a sound, something between a hiss and a laugh. "Perhaps our translation is malfunctioning. Your species cannot possibly believe it can resist integration. You have 72 hours to withdraw all hegemony forces from Sol system," Choi continued as if they hadn't spoken. "Any remaining alien vessels after that deadline will be considered hostile and destroyed." The head alien's skin flushed deep purple, with what might have been amusement or anger. "You possess no technology capable of threatening our ships. Your atmosphere is still clouded with particulate matter from our demonstration strikes." Dr. Lee stepped forward, placing a small device on the table. It projected detailed schematics of hegemony ships, including structural weaknesses and propulsion vulnerabilities that the aliens had believed beyond human understanding. "6 months ago, you had a technological advantage," Lee said quietly. "That advantage no longer exists." The aliens conferred among themselves, their speech too rapid for the translators to follow. Finally, the leader turned back. "These are clever forgeries. Primitives often resort to deception when—" "This meeting is concluded," Choi interrupted. 72 hours, not 1 minute more." The hegemony representatives departed, dismissing the warning as empty bravado from a species in denial about its fate. Their flagship, a massive crescent-shaped vessel capable of destroying continents, began its journey back to the main fleet to prepare the final assault. It never arrived. Halfway to the rendezvous point, sensors on Earth detected a massive energy spike. Observers through telescopes saw a brief sun-bright flare where the hegemony command ship had been, then nothing but expanding debris. In the Defense Council chamber, General Tay put down a communication device and nodded to Director Choi. "Test successful," he said simply. The modified drones performed exactly as Dr. Lee predicted. Their shields never detected our approach because they weren't looking for technology they believed impossible for us to develop. Director Choi looked at the faces around her, tired, determined, but now showing the first real hope in 6 months. "And so humanity announces its response," she said quietly. "Now we prepare for what comes next. They attacked the wrong species, and they're about to learn exactly what that means. At the edge of the solar system, the remaining hegemony ships received the final transmission from their destroyed flagship and, for the first time in their collective memory, experienced something unfamiliar: doubt. The hegemony's response to their destroyed flagship was predictable. They attacked with everything they had. 300 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system, their weapons already charging. They expected to find a frightened planet, desperately preparing defenses. Instead, they found Commander Song waiting for them. "All ships maintain position," Song ordered from the bridge of the EDF Vengeance, Earth's first true battleship. Around her, crew members monitored systems that blended human ingenuity with reverse-engineered alien tech. The ship wasn't pretty. Its hull showed welding marks and mismatched plates, but its weapons and shields were fully operational. "Enemy fleet approaching in standard attack formation," reported Lieutenant Yoon from the tactical station. "They're not even trying to conceal their movements," Song nodded. "They still think we're primitives. That works for us." She activated the fleet-wide channel. "All vessels implement Operation Nemesis. Phase 1 begins now." Across the solar system, 176 Earth ships emerged from hiding places among asteroids, behind moons. And even from within the sun's corona, protected by shields, the hegemony believed humans couldn't possibly have developed. It wasn't just the number of ships that shocked the alien fleet, it was their design. Earth hadn't simply copied hegemony technology, they had reimagined it, combining alien principles with human creativity. The hegemony commander's transmission came through, his multi-pupiled eyes widening as he took in the human fleet. "Impossible. You cannot have built these vessels in mere months." "We didn't build them in months," Song replied calmly. "We built them in weeks. The rest of the time was spent improving them." She cut the transmission and gave the order. "All ships engage according to Tactical Plan Theta." What followed wasn't a battle so much as chaos for the hegemony fleet. Earth ships didn't move or fight, according to any pattern the aliens recognized. Where hegemony tactics relied on overwhelming force applied methodically, human vessels darted, in unpredictable patterns, striking from unexpected angles, sacrificing efficiency for surprise. The human ships were smaller but faster, their weapons less powerful but more precisely targeted. They aimed not for maximum destruction, but for specific vulnerabilities. Propulsion systems, shield generators, command centers, ships that had conquered dozens of worlds found themselves crippled by precisely placed shots from vessels a fraction of their size. "They're retreating," Yoon announced after 2 hours of fighting. 78 enemy vessels destroyed, 132 damaged, the rest breaking off. Song didn't smile. "Phase 2. Transmit the coordinates to all ships capable of FTL travel." 43 Earth vessels, including the Vengeance, engaged their faster-than-light drives, not to flee, but to follow. The coordinates had been extracted from captured hegemony databases, the locations of their most important military installations across 3 star systems. What the hegemony didn't know, couldn't comprehend, was that humans had no intention of simply defending Earth. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about making sure the hegemony could never threaten another world again. The Vengeance emerged from FTL near Hegemony Prime, the aliens' military headquarters. 3 other Earth ships appeared nearby, immediately engaging the surprised defensive fleet. On the planet's surface, Captain Kang led the first human troops to set foot on alien soil. His squad had been training for this moment since the day after the initial attack on Earth. They wore powered armor that enhanced their strength and speed, with helmets that translated hegemony languages in real time. "Remember," Kang told his team as their dropship approached the surface, "we're not here for revenge, we're here for victory." But the look in his eyes said more. He had lost his entire family when Seoul was destroyed. The hegemony had never fortified their headquarters against ground assault. Why would they? No species had ever dared attack them directly. Their security consisted mainly of automated systems designed to control subject populations, not repel determined attackers. Kang's team moved through the alien complex like ghosts, disabling security systems and capturing key control centers. When they reached the central command facility, they encountered their first real resistance, a squad of hegemony elite guards, taller and more heavily armed than regular troops. The firefight was brief but intense. The aliens had superior position, but Kang's soldiers had something the hegemony couldn't understand: personal motivation. Every human on the mission had lost someone to the initial attacks. They fought not just for orders or victory, but for the faces they saw in their dreams. "Secure the command center," Kang ordered after the last defender fell. "Download everything in their systems. We need their fleet deployments, colony locations, everything." While his tech specialists worked, Kang noticed movement in a side corridor. He raised his weapon and found himself facing a wounded hegemony officer. The alien was trying to reach an alarm panel. "Stop," Kang said, his helmet translating automatically. The alien froze, then slowly turned. "You are making a mistake," the alien said, its voice oddly musical through the translator. "The hegemony cannot be defeated. We span hundreds of worlds." "Not for long," Kang replied. The alien, who later identified itself as Sub-Commander Trell, seemed genuinely confused. "Why did you not accept integration? Your species would have survived in some form. Now you risk total extinction." Kang almost laughed. "That's the difference between us. You offered survival. Humans require more. More than survival." Trell's inner eyelids blinked rapidly in what might have been confusion. What could be more important? Freedom, justice. Kang paused. Payback. The concept seemed foreign to Trell. In the hegemony's 16,000 years of expansion, species either submitted or were eliminated. The idea of a counterattack, especially one launched from a position of technological disadvantage, was outside their experience. As Kang's team escorted their prisoner back to the ship, reports came in from across hegemony space. Human forces had struck simultaneously at 17 key installations. Not all attacks succeeded, but enough did to throw the entire alien command structure into disarray. Back aboard the Vengeance, Commander Song reviewed the data stolen from the hegemony headquarters. "They're vulnerable," she announced to her officers. "Their empire expanded too quickly. They rely on fear and technological superiority, not actual military strength. And now they have neither against us," Lieutenant Yoon added. Later, when interrogating Trell, Song asked the question that had puzzled her since the first attack. "Why did you target civilians first?" Any military strategist would have eliminated armed forces before anything else. Trell's answer revealed everything about the hegemony's fundamental misunderstanding of humanity. It is the most efficient method of integration. Show a species their vulnerability, and they calculate the futility of resistance. It has worked 17 times before. "But not with us," Song said. "No." Trell's alien features formed what might have been the equivalent of a frown. "Your species responds to threat by becoming more dangerous. It is irrational." Song smiled for the first time since the war began. "That's humanity's secret. You attacked the wrong species, one that grows stronger when wounded. And now you'll learn what that really means." As the Vengeance prepared to jump to its next target, Song looked at the tactical display, showing human forces advancing across hegemony space. The aliens had expected submission. Instead, they had awakened Earth's wrath. Admiral June stood on the observation deck of the EDF Reckoning, watching the stars shift as the massive warship dropped out of FTL near the hegemony colony world Draxis Prime. What had once been the jewel of the alien empire's outer territories now showed signs of the spreading conflict: orbital defense. Platforms drifted as burnt-out hulks, and the planet's night side showed dark patches where cities should have been illuminated. "Status report," June ordered, his voice low but carrying across the bridge. "Minimal resistance in orbit, Admiral," replied Commander Back. "Most hegemony forces appear to have withdrawn to defend their core worlds." This pattern had repeated across a dozen systems as Earth's growing fleet pushed deeper into enemy territory. The hegemony, never having faced a serious military challenge before, was falling back in disarray, unable to adapt to humanity's aggressive tactics. "What about the surface?" June asked. Back's expression changed. "Sir, we're detecting unusual activity. Multiple population centers show signs of conflict, but the energy signatures don't match hegemony weapons. I think the locals are fighting back. June ordered a closer approach, and what they discovered changed the nature of the war. The landing party, led by Major Gill, made contact not with hegemony forces, but with representatives of the Nyx, a species of bird-like humanoids with iridescent feathers and 4 arms. They had been the original inhabitants of this world before the hegemony arrived 3 centuries earlier. "We watch your ships fight the tall ones," said Krelta, the Nyx resistance leader, speaking through a translator. "For first time, we see hegemony ships destroyed. We think perhaps now is time." Gill learned that the Nyx weren't alone. Throughout the hegemony's vast territory, 17 different intelligent species had been conquered, subjugated, and forced into what amounted to slavery. Some provided manual labor, others technical expertise, all under tight control maintained by fear and overwhelming technological superiority, until humanity showed that the hegemony could bleed. Within days, Admiral June was coordinating not just with Earth forces, but with growing resistance movements across a dozen worlds. The Nyx provided star charts marking vulnerable supply chains. The crystalline Voth offered technical expertise about hegemony communication systems. The massive, 6-limbed Tarkin brought knowledge of the aliens' central worlds that no human scout could have acquired. "They've built their empire on sand," June told Earth's Defense Council during a secure transmission. "They've never needed to develop actual loyalty or cooperation. They just take what they want and assume their technology makes them untouchable. And now?" asked Director Choi from Earth. "Now they're facing something they've never encountered, a coordinated resistance that keeps adapting. Every defeat makes us stronger because we learn. They've only ever known victory, so they don't know how to handle failure." The decisive moment came 3 weeks later at the Battle for Hegemony Central Command. Earth ships, now bolstered by vessels, crewed by liberated species, surrounded the massive space station that served as the aliens' military headquarters. The battle should have been difficult. Instead, they found a hegemony fleet in disarray, with ships actually firing on each other, as different factions fought for control. "They're collapsing from within," Lieutenant Han observed from the tactical station of the Reckoning. "Their command structure can't handle multiple defeats." After the battle, a transmission arrived from the highest authority in hegemony space, the Council of 13, the mysterious leaders who had directed their species' expansion for millennia. "We wish to discuss terms," the message stated simply. Lieutenant Han was selected to represent Earth at the negotiations, partly because of her diplomatic training, but mostly because of her unflappable demeanor. She would need it. The meeting took place on a neutral station at the edge of what had been hegemony space before the war. Han arrived with a small security team to find the hegemony representatives already waiting, tall, imposing figures with the natural arrogance of beings who had never known defeat. "We are prepared to offer generous terms," the lead counselor began without preamble. "The hegemony will withdraw from the Sol system and establish a buffer zone of 20 light-years. Your species will be officially recognized as independent, not subject to integration." Han listened silently, her expression revealing nothing. When the alien finished, she placed a small device on the table between them. It projected a hologram showing the devastation of Earth's cities during the first attack. "Before we discuss terms," Han said quietly, "I want to ensure you understand why we're here. This isn't just about protecting Earth now. It's about justice for those we've lost, and protection for every species under your control." The counselor's skin flushed a deep purple. "Our internal administration is not subject to negotiation." "Everything is subject to negotiation," Han replied. "Earth's terms are simple: complete independence for all species currently under hegemony control, reparations for the damage caused to Earth, and the dismantling of your military capacity to ensure you cannot threaten others again." The aliens conferred among themselves in rapid clicks and whistles. Their translators didn't convert. Finally, the lead counselor leaned forward. "Perhaps you misunderstand your position. While your species has achieved surprising success, the hegemony still possesses resources you cannot imagine. We came prepared to be generous. Do not mistake this for weakness." Han smiled thinly. Don't mistake anything. While we've been talking, Earth fleets have secured your main shipyards at Keltis. The Nix have liberated 3 more of their colony worlds. The Voth have disabled your central communication array. She stood. You don't seem to understand. This isn't a negotiation between equals. This is your chance to surrender with some dignity intact. What happened next showed that the hegemony still hadn't learned their lesson about humanity. Hidden. Weapons emerged from the alien ceremonial staffs, a treacherous last attempt to eliminate the human leadership and turn the tide. They never got the chance to fire. Han's security team had been briefed on hegemony biology and knew exactly where to aim. The would-be assassins fell before their weapons fully deployed. Han hadn't even flinched. She looked at the remaining counselor, who stood frozen in shock. That was your last mistake, she said calmly. Humanity would have accepted a genuine peace. Now you'll face the full consequences of your actions. She tapped her communication device. Admiral June, the hegemony has rejected reasonable terms and attempted assassination during peace talks. You have authorization to proceed with Operation Final Judgment. Within hours, coordinated attacks struck every remaining hegemony stronghold, simultaneously. Not just Earth forces, but fleets crewed by every species that had suffered under alien rule. The empire that had stood for 16,000 years collapsed in less than a week. As Han watched the reports come in, she felt no joy, only grim satisfaction. The hegemony had attacked Earth believing humans would calculate the odds and submit. Instead, they had awakened something they couldn't understand, a species that refused to surrender, that fought harder when wounded, and that would go to any lengths to protect not just itself, but others who couldn't fight back. They had attacked the wrong species and paid the ultimate price for their mistake. The gleaming towers of New Sol rose like crystal formations against the morning sky, their surfaces catching the sunlight and breaking it into rainbows. 5 years had transformed the crater, where the old city once stood, into something both familiar and alien, a blend of human architecture and technologies borrowed from a dozen worlds. Ambassador Jin walked along the memorial path that wound through the city center, her formal diplomatic robes drawing respectful nods from passers-by. The path was lined with holographic images, faces of those lost in the first attack, hovering like ghosts above small personal items left by families. A child's toy robot, a wedding ring, a student's half-finished thesis notes. Jin paused at one particular memorial. The face of her brother smiled from the projection, forever frozen at 26 years old. She placed her hand on the sensor pad, and his voice filled the small bubble of privacy that formed around her. "Hey sis, passed another physics exam today. Mum's making your favorite dinner to celebrate." The recording was from the day before he died. Jin listened silently, as she did every year on this day, the anniversary of the hegemony's first attack, and not coincidentally, the founding date of the Galactic Cooperative. "Ambassador." Her assistant Seo approached respectfully once the privacy field dissipated. "The delegates from Nix Prime have arrived early. They're eager to see the memorial ceremony." Jin nodded and followed Seo toward the diplomatic landing pad where a sleek shuttle had just touched down. The Nix were always early. Their culture placed enormous value on timeliness. Their delegation emerged from the craft, their iridescent feathers shimmering in complex patterns that conveyed as much meaning as their words. "Elder Krelta," Jin bowed in greeting to the lead delegate, "Earth welcomes you and honors your presence at our remembrance." The tall avian being returned the gesture, its 4 wings folding in the formal greeting of its people. "The honor is ours, Ambassador Jin. The day humanity stood against the hegemony is sacred to all free peoples." Together they walked toward the central plaza where representatives from 23 species had gathered. Some were recognizably humanoid, others utterly alien in form. The crystalline Voth glittered like walking gemstones, while the amorphous myth pulsed in translucent containment fields that simulated their methane home atmosphere. What united them all was history. Every species present had once been under hegemony control. Now they were equal partners in the cooperative, a galactic alliance built on principles that would have been unimaginable under the old regime. "Is it true?" asked Kreltar as they walked, that Earth refused the position of leadership in the cooperative? My people find this difficult to understand. By right of victory, you could have replaced the hegemony with your own rule. Jin smiled. That would have defeated the purpose of everything we fought for. Earth didn't want to become the new hegemony. We wanted to end the concept altogether. The ceremony began at noon, exactly 5 years from the moment the first alien weapon had struck Earth. President Yoon, who had led much of the reconstruction effort, stepped to the central podium. Above the plaza, the air shimmered as massive holographic displays activated, showing scenes not just from Earth but from every world that had suffered under hegemony rule. We gather not only to remember what was lost, Yoon began, but to celebrate what was gained. 5 years ago we faced extinction. Today we stand at the beginning of the most remarkable cooperation between diverse peoples the galaxy has ever known. Jin watched the faces of the alien delegates as the president spoke. Many showed the physical signs of emotions specific to their species. The Nix's feathers rippled in patterns, indicating deep respect, while the massive Tarkin delegates rumbled low subsonic tones of agreement that humans could feel more than hear. After the formal speeches, Jin led the diplomatic delegation to the orbital terminal. Their destination was Unity Station, the massive space installation that now served as the cooperative's headquarters. Once there, the real work would begin. A conference to establish trade routes between formerly isolated systems, medical exchange programs, and joint scientific ventures. The shuttle broke through Earth's atmosphere, the blue planet falling away. Beneath them, Jin watched several alien delegates press against viewing ports, fascinated by the sight. For species who had known only restricted movement under hegemony rule, free travel between worlds was still a novelty. "Your world heals quickly," observed Tral, a Voth diplomat whose crystalline body refracted light in complex patterns. "Our historians are still trying to understand how a species could rebuild so effectively after such destruction." "Humans have had plenty of practice," Jin replied. "Throughout our history, we've had to rebuild after wars, natural disasters, plagues. It's part of who we are. We fall, we get back up." The shuttle docked with Unity Station, a structure that symbolized the new galactic order. Originally built as a joint project between humans and the liberated species, the station featured architecture that accommodated all member races. Gravity. Varied in different sections, atmospheres were tailored to specific needs, and translation fields ensured seamless communication. In the Grand Assembly Chamber, Jin took her seat among hundreds of representatives. The chamber itself was a marvel of engineering, a perfect sphere with the delegates arranged so that no position was elevated above others, a deliberate contrast to the hegemony's hierarchical structures. Diplomat Park, Earth's senior representative, to the cooperative, rose to address the assembly as the session began. A veteran of both the war and the peace that followed, his face bore the scars of combat, but his eyes showed the calm of someone who had found purpose beyond conflict. 5 years ago, Park began, many of us did not know the others existed. The hegemony kept us isolated, afraid, convinced we were alone. They believed this made us easier to control. He paused, looking around the chamber. They were wrong. Holograms appeared throughout the chamber, images from the liberation of different worlds, showing cooperation between species that had never met before Earth brought them together. The hegemony's greatest mistake wasn't attacking Earth, Park continued. It was failing to understand what they had awakened. Humans don't just fight for survival, we fight for justice. We don't just defend ourselves, we protect others. And once roused to action, we do not stop until the job is finished. Jin watched as delegates from across the galaxy nodded in understanding. The concept had been foreign to many of them at first. Species conditioned by centuries of oppression had initially found humans terrifying, then bewildering and finally inspiring. The universe has learned an important lesson, Park concluded. Earth does not start conflicts, but we will always finish them. And when peace comes, we build it to last. As the assembly broke into discussion groups, Jin found herself approached by a young Nix, not part of the official delegation, but one of many students now studying at cross-species universities. "Ambassador," the Nix said hesitantly, "our history teaches that before the hegemony came, Our people fought countless wars among ourselves. How did humans overcome this? Our records show your species also had many conflicts. Jin considered the question carefully. We haven't fully overcome it. We still disagree, still compete. But we learned that cooperation doesn't require perfect agreement, just shared values that matter more than our differences. She gestured to the chamber around them, where dozens of species that had once been enemies or strangers now worked together. The hegemony thought they understood the universe, that conquest was inevitable and resistance futile. They attacked Earth expecting submission. Instead, they found the one thing stronger than fear or force, the determination that no one should live as slaves, and the willingness to fight not just for ourselves but for others. Outside the viewport, Earth glowed blue against the blackness of space, smaller than many worlds in the cooperative, but central to the new galactic order, not through domination, but example. The hegemony had attacked the wrong species, and the universe was better for their mistake. The end.